Hello everyone and welcome to my video. This video is going to show you a brief preview of homeowners insurance. So one of the most common questions I get from my viewers is, how do I remember the content? Most of you have a short amount of time to read the material, to try and remember the material in order to pass your insurance exam. Usually, when you're rushed to learn something, the information you learn goes in and then goes out, and you don't retain it. So I struggled with this question for quite some time. I took a course on active learning, and I'm going to share some of my knowledge when it comes to previewing the material. Oftentimes, especially if it's not interesting in our minds, you tend to forget the things you learn. That's why it's important to try to train your mind to remember. The reason we study material is because we want to remember it. We study things over and over again so we don't forget, because repetition helps your mind to remember the things that you study. So the more that you read about the same thing, the more your mind becomes familiar with the material. Previewing what you're going to be learning and reading about can also help you to remember. Taking a look at keywords, bolded or highlighted areas in your text will help you to become more familiar with what you're studying. So my idea with this video is to preview the home insurance so that when you read the material, it'll become more familiar to you. So first things first, a homeowner's policy derives from the standard fire policy. So understanding the standard fire policy will help you to understand the foundation of a property policy. I do have a video about the standard fire policy on YouTube, which would be very helpful for you, so please check it out. There's some good information. So since I have a whole video on it, I'm not gonna go into it here, but it's pretty important to understand so that you can understand home policies. So homeowners insurance is a package policy, meaning there are two parts to it. There's property coverages and there are liability coverages. The property coverages protect the insured's property, the structure of their home, and their personal items in the home. Liability protects the insured's liabilities. If they were sued and responsible for injuries, they would be liable to pay for it. But who is considered the insured? So your text should explain in detail who the insured is, and it's important to remember it. So it's important to remember the insured is, there's the name insured, which is the main person and their spouse that would be listed as policy holders. And then there's the insureds. The insureds are the relatives in the home and the family in the home. There's guests who are not considered insured. So your text should explain in detail the concepts of who's insured. Then you want to understand the types of homeowners policies that there are. So essentially, there are 7 types of homeowners policies. You have your HO1, which is your basic. You have your HO2, and HO stands for homeowners. So you have your HO2, which is your broad. Then you have your HO3, which is your special. You have your HO4, which is renter's insurance. There's HO5, which is a comprehensive coverage. HO6 is for condo insurance, and then the HO8 is for modified homes. So it's important to understand what type of coverages are in these type of homeowners policies. So basically, for regular homes, you're going to see either an HO3, Not too often you'll see the HO1 or an HO2, but it's very important to study those for your test. And then the HO4 is going to be renter, so there's not as much coverages as you'll see in the other HO policies. And then condo is also going to be a limited coverage, but it's very important to know these coverages and what it entails. So we now know there are 7 types of home policies, but the structure of each home policy for the most part are pretty similar. The parts of the policy are listed from A to F. You have your property coverages, A, B, C, and D, and then you have your liability coverages, E and F. So understanding what each of these parts cover is definitely going to be important when you're studying your home policy. We know that the dwelling, or you may not know, but the dwelling insurance, coverage A, is going to cover the structure of the home. Coverage B, that will cover any other structures not attached to the home, including fences or sheds. Coverage C, personal property, or you can think of contents, your contents for C. Personal property or your personal items, your personal contents inside of the home. And then coverage D is loss of use. Almost very similar to, well, it is the additional living expense coverage. You do want to get into these coverages, understand the percentages that they pay and how they pay and what is covered in each of these parts. And then you have coverage E, which is your personal liability. Somebody gets injured on your property or the homeowner's property, and they sue the homeowner. Personal liability is what protects them. This is what pays out if they have to owe something. Medical payments to others, somebody gets injured on the property and it's a slight injury, something that can be fixed easily, then medical payments to others would be covered in that situation. But this is also something that you'll want to make sure to study with your study material. Just previewing it right now to help you so with that when you do study, it'll become more familiar to you. The next thing you want to know and understand are the perils that are covered in the policy. So in your text, it should list the certain perils that are covered. I actually have a video on my website that talk a little bit more in detail about the perils and how you can memorize them a little bit better. So check that out. But here are just some of the perils that are covered on a home policy. They're just the basic ones. Your fire, damage due to fire, damage due to wind, damage due to hail, damage due to riots, and there's so much more. So these are the things that you want to make sure to understand when you're studying a home policy, what's covered. You also want to make sure to understand what's not covered. There are property exclusions and also liability exclusions. So you must understand what's not covered in a home policy. Oftentimes something that is excluded can also be endorsed to a policy. For instance, mold it's a general exclusion on a homeowner's policy, but you will notice that mold can oftentimes be added to a policy by purchasing an additional endorsement. So know your exclusions, know what's not covered because it's specifically excluded on the policy. Know your endorsements. We just talked about one of them, which is mold. Endorsements are things that can be added to make the policy better. They're not generally there, but they can be added. And oftentimes it's going to cost more to add an endorsement, but sometimes you'll see that people will want to add endorsements because they want to make sure that they're fully covered for certain things that are excluded. But you'll want to know when you read your material what endorsements are available for homeowners, because that will probably be on your test as well. You also want to know what the additional coverages are that are in a home policy. So the additional coverages can also be known as supplemental coverages. If you're studying the auto policy, you'll see supplemental coverages for coverages that are available for a policy in addition to what the policy generally covers. You don't have to pay extra for additional coverages. It's just additional coverages to the policy. Like for instance, if a house burns down because of fire, it's covered because fire is a peril that's covered on a policy. But in addition to that, coverage will also include debris removal, because in order to rebuild the home, you have to remove the debris first. So debris removal is an additional coverage, not actually listed as a coverage on the policy because it's an additional, kind of goes without saying. So that's one of them, but there's a few more. There's a lot more actually, probably about 7 or 8 that you might want to look into studying. So just a quick recap. You want to know what's covered. You want to know what's excluded. You want to know the additional coverages. You want to know endorsements. You want to know who's covered. You definitely want to study the standard fire policy. You want to study the structure of a home policy. This is all going to help you when you read your material, so that your material kind of becomes a little bit more familiar to you when you read it. So for those of you who do not have material to read, or you're looking for additional resources, I've posted 2 videos on my website that explain homeowners policies and dwelling policies in detail. So if my YouTube videos have helped you, then the videos posted on my page will really help you to understand the home and the dwelling. And you can download the full video for a small fee, so check it out. I left a link below. Also, for those of you who are looking for study materials or practice sheets or practice exams to pass your property and casualty exam, or even if you're doing continuing education for it, if you're looking to pass securities exams, the info, if you go to Kaplan Financial Products, I left the link below. They have a bunch of products that can help you study for your exams. If you go to the link on my page below, you'll receive an additional 10% savings off of any of their products. So check that out as well. The links are available below. I do want to thank you for viewing my videos. I'm definitely working on some more for you. So please send me some emails and let me know what type of videos you'd like to see. Thank you so much. And once again, my name is Rebecca and I am your insurance lady.